Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, a bald explorer, out on another walk, and I'm joined by the lovely Julia. Hello, lovely Julia.
Hello, lovely Richard.
We are in Binsted, or close to Binsted, and we're in some of the woods that are going to be affected by the new A27 bypass that the Highways Agency have decided they're going to put in order to relieve the traffic on the old A27. And although this isn't actually right on the route, it's just a little bit south of the route, but you have these ancient ash trees, these great big medieval ash stools behind us and all round, which one can't help thinking there's going to be an environmental impact on all the associated environment, not just the trees but all the animals and everything.
Well, woods like this are going to be split in two, you know, and sometimes just snippets, but I mean, the wildlife areas like this have been reduced and reduced and reduced so much over the last many decades, and no one's been keeping track of how much has actually been lost. You know, we keep eating away at it.
And the fact that the woods are going to be split in two, you've got all those animals that are roaming around that are going to be suddenly stymied because then they can no longer do traditional
all trapped
routes.
in little pockets and stuff that without wildlife bridges, without woods like these to be sacred and protected in some way.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this tree, it's beautiful, look at it. It's gorgeous. I can't express how fantastical these woods are.
Well, we're following Emma Tristram, who is one of the leaders of the protest against this wood taking place, although actually the group has gone ahead of us, and I think they're blowing whistles, so we better go and catch up with them as they take us to the actual route that the A27 is going to take part on, is going to plough through rather. I've joined up with Emma Tristram. Hello, Emma. You are one of the passionate protesters against this new A27 coming in. Could you tell us where we are?
We're in a wood called 100 House Copse, which is part of Binsted Woods. Binsted Woods are huge. There's 20 different woods within Binsted Woods, so this is just one of them. It's also quite large. It's one of the best woods for wildlife in the whole 100 hectares. And it also contains within it something very interesting, a double Iron Age earthwork, bank and ditch. It's survived in the woods because the woods are there. In the fields, it was known to go through the fields, but it's mostly been ploughed out, although you can see vestiges of it. But here in 100 House Copse, we've got two huge banks dating back to the Iron Age, and where it's double, it's unique, except for at the top of the downs there's another double bank, which is also part of it. So here we've got a completely unresearched double Iron Age earthwork bank, which would be destroyed.
So as we walk through these woods, we're coming up to a sign in the distance there, you'll see, which is an indication of where the road is going to be crossing at the bank point. The bank is on our right, and you may just make it out. It's a significant bank, as you've just said, Emma. The point is there is two roundabouts coming in. There's a crossing and a significant junction that is going to be destroying all that we see now, including something that's irreplaceable, which is the Iron Age earthworks, which, as you've said, is absolutely huge. Not only that, of course, you're dissecting Binsted Woods with this massive infrastructure.
That's right. We're only just looking at one part of it. Binsted Woods would be severely affected by this bypass. Here we're just starting to walk through the bit that would be destroyed in 100 House Copse, but that's just part of it. The bypass would also cut off about 20 hectares of woods a long way from here at the bottom end of Binsted.
It's a 4 mile, it's a whole 4 mile stretch, isn't it?
Yes, like a mile or two further down it would cut off very good parts of Binsted Woods. It would also go through Barnes Copse, another lovely piece of ancient woodland next to this wood. And all of this woodland is superb for wildlife.
Yes.
And we've really only discovered this in the last 2 or 3, 4 years. And we've found, for instance, we've got 14 species of bat in these woods. Some of them use this wood, including very rare ones.
Right.
The 14th was only found this year. There are 17, I think, or 18 in the whole UK. So
Gosh.
that's a massive count. It's something that, like the same as Ebon Common or the Men's. Really good.
Let's just
places.
carry on walking, give people an idea of what's going to disappear, and the peaceful quietness of this, the escape from noise that will no longer be an escape.
Well, this part of the woods is interesting because it's near the A27, but the woods are so thick that you don't really notice the road very much. You can probably hear it in the distance. But these woods are fabulous. They've got the wonderful wildlife, the huge earth banks. The archers use them for their archery, and they absolutely love them. It has bluebells in the spring. Some of the archers come early in the morning just to track deer for fun, not to shoot them, just to observe them.
It's technically
all this would be lost.
It's technically not an ancient wood.
Yes, it is.
It is an ancient
This one
wood.
is
Oh, it
technically
is.
ancient wood. Apart from that plantation of laurels.
Oh, right. So the crossing itself is actually obliterating ancient
It's
woodland.
obliterating ancient
But
woodland,
again,
of very high quality.
Yes, that is irreplaceable. I've caught up with Sharon Trodd from the Rat Pack Archers group. Now, you and your group shoot field archery in these woods, in Binsted Woods, is that right?
Yes, we do.
And that's going to be impacted by this A27 bypass going through.
Yeah, unfortunately, if it goes ahead, as Highways England are planning at the moment, we will have a massive road going right the way through these woods, and we'll be left with a little bit on one side and a little bit on the other side. Sort of means that we can't really do what we do anymore, because our course will not actually exist anymore, because we will be having to cross over a big road.
Yes. So now, if we take a little walk along this bridle path at the same time, we should just explain for those that don't know, and I didn't know, field archery is different from target archery. You actually are not so much in the field in this case, you're actually in the woods,
Yeah.
stalking special targets.
Well, it's using the natural environment to test your skill, really,
Right.
because you're having to shoot like with foliage in the way and branches and trees.
Just like you would be if you were back in the day when
but
when
obviously
you were...
we're not actually shooting at anything alive. We're
No.
shooting at foam targets.
Yes. So, I mean, this is really just an example of where human activity and human recreation is also being impacted by the road coming through these woods.
Yeah.
So you said to me off camera that you had there's 4 courses that you use.
Yeah, we got 3 courses here
3
at the
courses,
moment,
and
and we would be sort of left with half and half. So we might be able to cobble together one, but it would have a big road in the middle of it.
So, yeah.
Because they're planning to come slap through the middle of it.
So Emma, we're standing at the bottom of the Iron Age bank. We're in the ditch, aren't we? And we're going to just
Yes.
quickly take a stroll up to the top, just to give people an idea of scale.
Okay.
And it's actually quite steep. And the reason such a bank would have been constructed on such a scale in the Iron Age times is what?
Nobody really knows, but there are some educated guesses.
Yes.
And it's thought it was to do with enclosing an area, partly with ditches and banks, which were lengthways, and partly with loops of a river.
Right.
In this case,
Using
the
the
River
natural
Arun. So that
configuration of the
area
land.
between the River Arun and the ditch and bank was a defined area for something.
Yes.
It couldn't really be defended.
No.
Well, rivers make quite a good defence, but the ditch and bank doesn't look like it would be easy to make it.
But it's a
Siege
statement, presumably,
So-
of power,
Yes.
because there'll be a lot of people involved to dig a ditch and bank of such magnitude.
Exactly, something to do with tribes and possibly to do with the Romans. It's possibly something to do with the identity of a tribe who are going to be allies of the Romans or trade with the Romans. It's that period, just before the Roman invasion.
Now, it's safe to say that there are ditches and banks all over the country, and you know, if a few disappear, it's not the end of the world. However,
Actually,
this is a pretty good example of it, and it is pretty much the end of the world.
Well, these kinds of ditches and banks are quite rare, actually. They're called territorial oppida. There are some at Colchester, some at Chichester, some here, maybe some others, but they aren't all over the country by any means.
Right, oh, okay.
And this kind of preservation of one, but preserved by the woodland, is, I should think, pretty unusual. And this part of it has never been studied by archaeologists. At the top of the Downs is another section of it. That is a scheduled monument. This is now thought of as part of that. The whole thing is called War Dyke. But it would be terrible to lose this beautifully preserved Iron Age.
Yes. And again, this, just to reiterate, this is under threat.
Oh yes, it wouldn't be here anymore.
It wouldn't be here. No.
This lovely double section of it wouldn't be here anymore.
No. Julia,
Richard.
we are kneeling on this forest floor,
Yep.
on this woodland floor, I should say, and it's just thick. It's a thick carpet of, looking at that, beech leaves, oak leaves and twigs, which is all mulching down.
Yeah. Really brilliant. Proper fertile forest floor. Lots of breaking down twigs and leaves.
And absolutely essential to put in all those nutrients back into the ground to keep the trees. And it's what a forest does naturally. When the trees decay, that goes back and it goes back to humus. And all of this, you know, this is just another part of stuff that's going to disappear when they shove in a road.
Yep. Mosses, ferns, fungi. I've seen plenty of fungi. It's brilliant. I mean, you don't get that on a piece of woodland. This is a several hundred years old.
Yeah.
Since they stopped managing it.
And another interesting aspect, you hear about the term ancient woodland and then just woodland. Well, some woodlands can be very, very old, but they may not be ancient woodlands.
Ancient only requires 800 years. I mean, that is a long time. I mean, but if we keep killing them and getting rid of them before they reach that, where are the ancient forests of the future?
Well,
they're dead.
We've just clambered up the bank next to the A27.
In the 100 Woods.
The existing A27. You can hear the roar. I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see the sort of impact that the countryside then has to put up with once the new road is in. Here's the road. And of course, the new road is going to have a lot more traffic on it, because no matter how much you widen the road, you're always going to fill it, as we all know. There's no way wildlife could ever cross this road safely without getting squished, or indeed humans. Emma,
yes,
you have taken us out of the woods down a little bridle path called Scotland Lane.
Yes.
And the reason you've taken us here, which is east of where we were, is so that we can look down across the original medieval parish fields of Binsted, and where we're standing now most likely is where the road is going to plough through and bisect Binsted itself.
That's right.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
People always ask me that. I feel outraged. I feel appalled that it could even be suggested.
Yes.
It's awful. It's dramatically unacceptable. And the reason is that it would destroy so many lovely things. I'll just list a few of them.
Yes,
for you.
do.
This path we're on is Scotland Lane. It's a historic path, medieval or earlier, going from the Anglo-Saxon moot mound we were on earlier, all the way to points east in the Arundel direction. And in the woods, it's very wide with big banks either side. It's never been clear why it's there, and I think that the moot mound explains it, and that it is one of the routes to it.
We should just say a moot mound is a Saxon meeting point. Is
That's
that right?
And if that moot mound is proved to be the moot mound, which it's a hypothesis at the moment, it explains this track. And
Yes.
it means the whole of this area is what's called a landscape of governance, because the tracks leading to the meeting place are part of it.
Yes.
So that's the importance of this track. The importance of these fields is that they're the common fields of the medieval parish of Binsted, which were ploughed and farmed in various ways in strips which belonged to different people and worked by different people. The reason being it took, I think, 6 oxen to pull the plough, and one person couldn't provide that, so they had to work together.
Yes.
And these fields are still here and form the centre of the old parish of Binsted.
Well, sadly we've run out of time, but obviously this is a issue that's going to run and run, and I'd like to come back and find out more about it over the next 6 months, and I hope you'll take me to some more bits of Binsted and around to explore.
I
But
hope so too.
I'm just going to get Julia's last point of view on this. Julia, have you enjoyed the exploration around Binsted, and are you as horrified as I am at this terrible idea that the highways have decided to do?
Yes, I mean, it's a phantasmagorical little woodlands we've got there. It is a good word. That's why I used it. You know, it is. I mean, like I said, it's like a fantasy playground. You know, for young, old.
And everyone.
Yeah, I'm flabbergasted. I mean, I recognise that there might be need for better roads, but not at the expense of future ancient forests.
If you want to make a comment, do so below. We'd love to hear from you. All comments are welcome on both sides of the argument. But from us now, out here at Binsted, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Till then, goodbye.
Ta-ra!
Goodbye.